MSTY has again come back into the spotlight, but this time it's kind of the other way around. A couple months ago, I made a video about MSTY, and I went over how it may just be one of the greatest income ETFs ever. But that was, of course, a few months ago, and now, at least from what I've seen, the narrative has flipped quite a bit. I'm starting to see those very scary screenshots of MSTY's chart, of course, never including dividends, showing how the NAV has decayed or fallen roughly 60% this year. There's tweets like this one saying, wow, MSTY down 56% year to date. At this point, I just feel bad for the holders. Again, only showing the return for the NAV, not including dividends at a negative 56% year to date return. So this could definitely be just a classic rage bait post, or they just simply don't understand how total return works. There's also this other one that says, is anyone brave enough to admit that they own MSTY? With a 3-month chart showing that the NAV is down nearly 50% since July. And then I also came across whatever this is. So with all that being said, I wanted to focus on and talk about the current state of MSTY. So the fact is, MSTY just recently fell into a negative year-to-date return, breaking well below that of the S&P 500 at a negative 3.5% total year-to-date return. But if we go back a little bit farther to the 1-year chart, MSTY has a total 1-year return of just under 30%, nearly double that of the S&P 500. So when it comes to return, it really depends on when you got into MSTY and if you've been reinvesting the dividends, different factors like that, to know if it has been worth owning as of recently. But if you got into MSTY really anytime this year, chances are your position probably isn't doing that great. And this is all despite the enormous distributions that it's been paying every single month, and now it looks like it's going to be paying out every week. And its most current forward distribution rate is at 80%, which has also declined significantly, at least from the last time I made a video on MSTY, because back then it was over 140%. But the main reason why there's been so much underperformance is because, as we know, MSTY is the option income strategy ETF using MSTR as its underlying stock. And MSTR, or strategy, is completely flat this year in terms of price movement and has fallen roughly 32% since July. And the basic business model for strategy is to buy and hold as much Bitcoin as possible. So when Bitcoin doesn't perform that well, as it's been doing over the past couple of months, it kind of creates this chain reaction where MSTR falls significantly, as well as MSTY. And even though MSTY is paying massive distributions every month, it still does not offset the losses that the NAV experiences. And with the option strategy that it uses, it almost amplifies the downside risk. So it's definitely really enjoyable to hold an ETF like MSTY and get those extremely large distributions when Bitcoin is doing well. But when the price of Bitcoin starts to kind of cool off and slide back down, it's not as fun to be holding MSTY. So at this point, yes, technically MSTY is on sale. The NAV currently is at $11.86, down from about $44 this time last year. And its forward distribution rate is still really high, like we just saw at 80%. So in my opinion, there is still potential for it to be a pretty good high income yet high risk ETF to hold. If the price of Bitcoin quickly recovers from those lows and slowly floats back up to its all-time highs, then MSTY should continue to pay out those massive distributions every month or every week now, and the NAV should theoretically stay fairly consistent too. But of course, it can always go the other way around, where the NAV continues to fall and those distributions become less and less, putting you in that dividend trap. So it really depends on how much conviction you have for Bitcoin, and if you think it's worth buying MSTY for that high income, reinvesting those dividends while the price is really low, but also carry the risk of the NAV continuing to decay. And I know a lot of you out there still think that MSTY is one of the greatest income ETFs ever to exist, and others out there who may completely disagree. So let me know what your thoughts are on MSTY, and I will see you all next time.